It was a clear and gentle morning when I decided to leave the town behind and take a walk through the countryside. The sky was a wide, endless blue, and the air felt fresh and full of promise. A light breeze danced across the fields, carrying with it the soft scent of grass, earth, and wild flowers. As I stepped off the narrow paved road and onto the dirt path that led into the countryside, the sound of the town faded away. It was replaced by the peaceful music of nature, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional hum of insects waking up with the sun. The road was lined with tall, old trees whose branches reached out like welcoming arms. The shadows played on the ground, flickering gently as the morning light filtered through the leaves. I walked slowly, letting myself be pulled into the rhythm of the land. There was no rush here, no deadlines, only the moment and the simple joy of being surrounded by nature. To my right stretched a golden field of wheat, swaying in the breeze like the waves of a quiet sea. The stalks shimmered under the sun, and I could hear their soft brushing sound as they moved together. Every now and then, a bird would swoop low, searching for insects, then dart back up toward the sky. Further along, I came upon a small wooden fence and a narrow gate. Beyond it, a green pasture rolled out, dotted with sheep. Some were lying down, others slowly grazing. A shepherd, an elderly man with a wide straw hat, stood leaning on his stick. He noticed me and nodded with a warm smile. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" he called out. "It is," I replied. "Perfect for a walk." He chuckled and said, "You picked the right day. The countryside always shows its best side after the rain." We chatted for a few moments, then I continued on. The path led me through a patch of wildflowers, red poppies, yellow buttercups, and delicate purple clover. Bees buzzed happily from one bloom to the next. I bent down to take a closer look at the flowers and realized how alive the ground was. Ants marched in lines, butterflies fluttered carelessly through the air. Everything had its place, its purpose, and none of it seemed in a hurry. After a while, I reached a small stone bridge that crossed over a quiet stream. The water was so clear I could see every pebble at the bottom. A family of ducks paddled gently along, leaving tiny ripples behind them. I sat on the edge of the bridge and dipped my fingers into the cool water. For a few minutes, I just listened to the water, the wind, and the far-off call of a rooster from some nearby farm. When I stood up again, I noticed a narrow footpath leading up a gentle hill. I followed it, curious to see where it might go. As I climbed higher, the trees thinned, and the view began to open up. At the top of the hill, I stopped and turned around, and my breath caught in my throat. Below me stretched the entire valley. Green fields, yellow crops, clusters of trees, winding dirt roads, and scattered cottages with smoke lazily drifting from their chimneys. In the distance, I could see the village I had left that morning, its church steeple rising above the roofs. Birds soared on the wind, and the entire scene looked like something from a painting, too beautiful to be real. I sat there for a long time, just taking it in. There was no noise but the wind and the soft whisper of the grass. It was the kind of quiet that isn't empty, but full of life, full of presence, full of peace. Eventually, I came down the hill and continued my walk. I passed a small apple orchard, where the trees were heavy with fruit. A girl with red ribbons in her hair was picking apples with her grandmother. She saw me and held one out through the fence. "Would you like one?" she asked brightly. I smiled and took it. "Thank you, it's sweet," she said. "We just picked them this morning." She was right. The apple was crisp and juicy, tasting of sunshine and fresh air. As I walked on, the sun moved higher in the sky, and the shadows grew shorter. A group of children rode past on bicycles, laughing and calling to each other. They waved at me, and I waved back. Dogs barked from behind fences, not in warning, but as if saying hello. The path eventually curved past a small lake, where a fisherman sat quietly with his rod, a wide-brimmed hat covering his face. He didn't speak, but he nodded politely as I passed. The water reflected the sky so clearly it looked like a second world, one you could fall into if you weren't careful. Near the end of my walk, I came upon an old cottage with ivy climbing up its stone walls. In front of it, a woman sat on a wooden bench, knitting something with blue yarn. She looked up and said, "You've come far, haven't you?" I nodded. "Yes, and it's been wonderful," she smiled. "That's the magic of the countryside. It doesn't rush you. It just lets you be." I thanked her and continued on, my heart full. As the path led me back toward the village, I realized how deeply refreshed I felt, not just in body, but in mind. The countryside had a way of healing, of grounding you. It reminded me that life doesn't always have to be fast or loud to be meaningful. Sometimes, the quietest places say the most. It was early morning in the city, that rare time of day when everything feels new again. The sky was still painted with the soft blues and pale oranges of sunrise. Birds chirped from the tops of buildings and telephone wires, adding a natural melody to the usual silence before the city fully woke up. Unlike most days, this morning felt special. The air was fresh, noticeably so. There had been light rain the night before, washing away the dust and heat that had hung in the streets for days. Now, a cool breeze flowed through the narrow alleys and wide avenues, carrying with it the clean scent of wet stone, morning dew, and the faint aroma of blooming flowers from balcony gardens. People were beginning to stir. Joggers in bright athletic wear ran along the river walk, their footsteps rhythmic and light. Some wore earbuds, others preferred the natural sound of the city waking up. They breathed in deeply, smiling, grateful for the rare freshness that surrounded them. Even the city's usual scent, a mix of traffic, concrete, and cooking oil, seemed to have been replaced by something purer, almost countryside-like. Along the sidewalks, shopkeepers rolled up their shutters, greeting the morning with calm energy. A bakery on the corner already had its ovens going. The smell of freshly baked bread and pastries spilled out onto the street, mixing with the cool, clean air in a way that made every passerby pause for just a second. A man in a suit stopped to inhale deeply before stepping inside for his usual croissant and coffee. Children with school bags walked with their parents, some still rubbing sleep from their eyes. A few chased pigeons around the fountain in the small square, their laughter echoing against the buildings. Trees lining the sidewalks rustled gently, their leaves still damp and shining in the early light. Drops of water clung to parked cars, creating tiny rainbows when the sun hit them just right. On the rooftop of a tall apartment building, a woman stood with a cup of tea in hand. She closed